Right then, the story has only just begun. For some of you, right, quick intro into what the Accountability 7 is for you, what it means for you, what it can do for you, and what it's not. To be honest, so yeah, what this isn't. Okay, it's not a chat group, although you can absolutely use this group in whatever way that you want. It might not always be around, but feel free to do whatever you want in here. It's not personal training, it's not nutrition coaching, it's not mindset work, it's not some of the things to do with, let's say, my mood and sleep programs, unless you are already part of personal training, online coaching kind of agreement. And that's just said for if people outside of, let's say, those circles start using this, which could be the case going forward, right? But what this is, it's accountability. It's helping you, it's getting you to do the things that you already know or want to know, and in a consistent way, and it is a support group to help achieve that, right? It's covering 7 areas that you will have seen, you may have seen already. Some of the basics that are not so basic, they are really, really important, but unfortunately things that people kind of slip up on. Doesn't matter whatever your goal is, whether it's weight loss, it's weight gain, it's getting stronger, it's getting healthier. These things will always be present, and again, sadly, these are the things that often show up with gaps, holes, red flags that aren't being achieved to help people accomplish that. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. That's the point of this accountability group. Let's leave no stone unturned, right? Let's make sure them basics are done more times than they are not. You're not going to be perfect. That's not the point. I'm not perfect. I wouldn't want you to think that the point of this is to become perfect, because that perfectionist, let's say, mindset is often what lets people down in some cases. You get them people who they lose a load of weight in a month and then they put it back on. As I would always say, that means it doesn't work, right? So you've got to consider, what do you need to do differently going forward, and that's being consistent, but using a way that's sustainable, okay? Not all gung-ho, doing everything all at once, but understanding where you are now, your point A, and how can you improve yourself over several areas by 2%, 5%, 10%, but in a way that you can keep doing it, so you kind of grow and you progress, and then you look back in 6 months' time, you're like, wow, my life has changed. How did that happen? It doesn't feel like I've even been doing anything, but you have, because the changes have been small but progressive, and you fitted them into your lifestyle so they become automatic and you're not having to think about them too much. But at the moment, there are going to be times where we need to concentrate, we need to focus, and just make sure we're doing the things that we know that we can do, that often that we're not. And as you see by this form, it's all about being visual. It's about you making the decisions, you saying, this is what I want to do, not me going, that's what you have to do. Of course, I've got ideas and recommendations, but it all comes down to you knowing where you are at the moment, what you can commit to, and then quite simply doing it. And then you tick. Did you do it? Yes or no? Quite simple. It's black and white. There's no hiding from this. It's yes or a no, right? And then we use colours to kind of sort of reinforce that, and then you kind of analyse over 2 or 3 weeks and realise what you're really good at and what you're not so good at, what you need to focus on, and what you need to just make sure you keep doing, because you're actually doing that well. So what do you need to do? Right at the top of the form, it's where we've got the agreements, and we've got the 7 areas of steps, which is neat, non-exercise activity, so things that aren't, let's say, purposeful exercise, like walking, moving around the house, doing housework, walking to the car, any kind of movement that's not let's say gym based, running, cycling, that kind of thing. And then there's your workout, which is more of your purposeful exercise routines, going to the gym, doing your PT session, going to yoga, running, things like that. Okay. Then we've got sleep. Okay, your water target, hydration, protein goal, vegetables, and then no alcohol. So we've got that combination of things that are like physical here, where it's, you know, movement, exercise related, and nutrition. Okay, so there are 7 areas. So what you need to do is make the agreements yourself. It's not a case of me going, it has to look like this. You've got to do that. You've got to hit this target. Again, I've got recommendations and things that I really think that people should aim at and strive for. But this comes down to you going, what am I currently doing or not doing? Okay, and how can I improve that by 5, 10, 15, 20%? You know, nothing crazy ass. Just how do I improve from where I am at this point on? You know, for example, if you're fairly sedentary and you're not moving too much outside of, let's say, a workout, you're sat down at your desk and you're doing, you know, 1,000 steps a day, saying I'm going to do 10,000 a day probably isn't a wise and skillful kind of agreement that you should make at this point in time. Maybe in a few weeks' time, months' time, that could be the case, but maybe for you it's like, how do I aim to be doing 3, 4, 5,000 steps a day? Or if you are doing 5,000 steps, maybe you do push to 8, 9, 10. Okay, so as I said, it's all about understanding where you are now and how can you just push yourself a little bit that's, you know, achievable, but it's still a challenge, and, you know, you're not kind of staying too safe. Okay, the idea of this is that we want more ticks, we want wins, because we don't want this to make fit people feel, you know, really bad about themselves, because that's not going to be very motivational. But we don't want to be stuck inside of the bubble, right? We need to kind of be stepping outside of that box, so to speak. So yeah, you go down the whole list and, you know, you say to yourself, you know, what do I know that I want to do with my workouts? Do I want to go to the gym or do purposeful exercise 3, 4 times a week? And, you know, then you sleep. You know, this is where I would probably start to get a little bit more involved and go, right, for me, I've put 7.5 hours, because that's kind of like the gold standard, really. You know, I'm not going to go too much into it, but sleep works in cycles, you know, like roughly 90-minute cycles, and 7.5 hours means that you get like the, you know, was it five of them cycles, right? So if you're getting 7, you're probably kind of cutting it short, which is often why you'll see like the 7 to 8 hours as a recommendation. So that's something that I'd aim for. Okay, and how I would recommend you doing that is getting some form of app. There are cheap ways of doing this and there are expensive ways of doing it, but just something on the app is going to kind of reinforce what you're doing, because it's not a case of, oh, I went to bed at 10 and then I think I woke up at 5, but then actually your sleep quality is really poor. So did you get that level of sleep? You probably didn't. So this is one area that I think you should have a lot more focus on and kind of go with a bit more of what I recommend. But again, it's down to you. You know, remember, it's not about me, it's about you, and you kind of pushing yourself and ensuring that you get, you know, better sleep, because as you'll find that this will improve all of the areas on this form. So there isn't a number one area to focus on, but if there was, this is one that you should be possibly prioritizing. And then we've got the water targets. You know, I'll often talk about people having a minimum of 1.5 litres a day. Okay, it's more, but if people are not having 1.5 litres a day at least, then that's a major red flag going on there. So, you know, if you're not drinking much water at the moment, maybe start there. You know, I would recommend that we're looking at 2 to 3 litres, but again, this comes down to where you are at the moment and you making these agreements that you can commit to. And then the protein goal, where so you take your weight in kilograms, okay, and you will multiply that between 1 gram and 2. 1.5 grams is kind of a good place to be. So let's, just to make it easy, because it's maths, if you was to be weighing 100 kilos, and yeah, I know that's a lot, that means 150 grams of protein for you. Now, personally, I'm going for 2 because my activity levels are high. I'm on my feet all day. My turnover of amino acids are probably going to be higher than other people. But again, it's up to you. But it's a minimum of 1 gram per kilo, up to 2, but 1.5 grams per kilo is a good place to be. So, you know, you're looking at 120 to 160 grams of carbs for most protein, 120 to 160 grams of protein for you know, most people, and actually targeting over the day. Okay, so if you're eating 3 or 4 meals a day, if that's a protein shake or whatever the case may be, that's what you want to cover over that day. And then vegetables, okay, for me, I want to eat a good amount of vegetables twice a day. And that's a good portion. That's a good handful right there, not like 7 peas on your plate. A good handful of vegetables twice a day. If you're eating no vegetables, eating them once a day is probably the target for you. If you're doing it once, maybe push that to twice. If you want to make it 3 times, make it 3 times. I will eat vegetables 3 times sometimes, but this is about me making sure that I hit it twice. If I eat vegetables once, I get a cross. All right, that's how it works. It's kind of okay, but it's not kind of where I want to be. So it reminds me to, you know, put that little bit more effort in the next day, the next week. And then the last one is you know, no alcohol. Okay, quite simply, if you don't drink any alcohol, you get a tick. If you drink alcohol, you know, it's an X. And again, this one comes down to you, but for me, it's like I'll allow myself to drink, you know, once a week, you know, normally on a Saturday, and that's fine. That works with me. Anything other than that, and things start to kind of, you know, things start to not work so well, get in the way. So that's my agreement to, you know, myself personally, that I'll allow myself to drink normally on a Saturday. So if I get 6 ticks, I kind of win, because that's the agreement that I had with myself, right? Even when I do drink. So that's the basics of, you know, the agreements, the first section. Okay, you know, so kind of take your time over that one, have a think about it, try not to be too vague about it, make it as specific as you can, especially maybe if it comes to the workout bit, where you just say, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. You know, what you're going to do, what exactly you're going to do, and when you're going to do it, maybe. So, and then with the form, as you see, we've got 3 other sections, 3 weeks. So the way I like to think we can do this is, you've got them agreements then for the next 3 weeks. Then you can analyze each kind of like you know, month or 3 week period. If you're nailing something, you can consider that maybe you should be pushing yourself a little bit. Or if you keep getting ambers or reds and X's, then you know what you need to focus on, right? So don't want to be chopping and changing this every week. Do this in 3 week blocks. That's how I see this working, you know, quite well for people. And then simply, if you stuck to your agreement, you get a tick. If you didn't, you get an X, right? Okay. And then if you get 7 ticks, you then give yourself a green circle at the bottom. And, you know, and I recommend, you know, getting yourself some felt tips. They don't cost us a lot. Or use your kids' crayons, whatever the case may be. They might even be yours. They may even be some paints. But use what you want to, but give yourself that kind of visual kind of pat on the back that I got a green, right? That's awesome. If you get 7 crosses, which definitely is a bad day, but that's okay, you get a red. Okay, a red dot. We don't, no one wants a red dot on their head. And then anything in between is an amber. Okay, so even if you get 6 crosses, 6 ticks and 1 cross. It's still an amber, right? Just to make you realise that actually it's not a green day. I'm not far away. Don't beat myself up. But how can I get more green days than amber days? And that's how simple it is. You know, my first week I got 6 ambers and 1 green, okay, which I normally would get 2 or 3 greens, I think, but that just, I was literally like 1 or 2 ticks away from an amber being a green. So remember that. And again, the point of this is it's visual. It's just to remind you of where you are, what you're doing, what you're not doing, and how you can keep improving and pushing you forward and you getting better results, because that's what it is at the end of the day. And then what I would like you to do, I invite you to do, is post a picture of your update, your form, just in here, no later than Monday lunchtime, right? Okay, that's the deadline, you know. So this finish on a Sunday evening. You don't have to have done your form by then, but Monday lunchtime, I feel that's fair enough for you to have kind of taken some action. And if you haven't, that's when I will start to make this a little bit more of a rigid process and start asking you what's going on, calling you out maybe, and if at any point this isn't for you and you want to drop out, you can, and there will not be a problem. But tell me that. Don't go silent, because if I'm not looking like I'm in the group, I am still watching stuff. So be aware of what's going on, and feel free to invite others if you think that this might help them. I think that this could be something that will be open to people outside of, let's say, my PT and coaching, as maybe just an accountability process, and a small cost, you know, still a cost, but a small cost to them. So if that's something that may interest you, let them know. Right then, so are you ready? If so, let's begin.